Welcome back to the Skinema podcast. This is episode 18, first episode of the new year 2026. So today we thought we're going to review Marty Supreme. Obviously, it came out like a week and a half ago. Me and Jathan saw it last week, but today we're going to be talking about it. But of course, before we get into the film review, Jathan, what's been going on the last few days?
Well, woke up today a little down because I went out last night and I had a decent amount to drink, so I was feeling pretty good. Went down to Seaport. It was fun.
Oh, nice.
Um, movie watching has kind of slowed down, mostly because I just wanted to enjoy the last few days of the year. Also, because I wanted to digest the movie we're talking about this week, because I just feel like there's a lot to cover here, and I'm excited. So that's about it for me. What about you?
Do you want to talk Howl's Moving Castle or no?
Um, I don't have too much to talk about, honestly.
You gave it a high
I
rating.
I mean, all Ghibli films are very quality. I think it was very good. I forget the character's name. Callister, is that his name? He's the fire demon. If you've watched the film, Nick hasn't seen it yet, and he was fun.
Right.
The cast was good. I did watch this in English, and I was surprised to see who the cast was,
I think
including,
Christian Bale, right?
yep, as Howl, and Billy Crystal, who does Mike Wazowski as
Mm.
Callister. And there's a ton of others too, but it was fun. It's a Ghibli film, so you know you're gonna get some fantastic artwork and just really visually pleasing aesthetic. So it felt like visual melatonin for me. It just really put my mind at ease.
Yep. For movie watching, I've finished up the year pretty strong. Let's see what I got here. I think last time we talked was obviously um, Marty Supreme. Since then, I think I just watched, some kind of random stuff. Some stuff I've been looking forward to. Mank, starring David Fincher. I've been wanting to watch that for a very long time. A little disappointed with it, but I'm glad I watched it. Titanic, finally, I watched. I've been saving this for a long, long time, but I had a good time with it. I think, obviously, James Cameron is a big director that does great with big practical sets, and I think the practical sets of the Titanic I thought were really good. I think the story is pretty obviously cookie cutter, and a lot of the I guess big scenes of this film I had seen before just in clips and stuff, but I still had a good time with it. I think Leo and Kate Winslet like are the heartbeat of this movie. If it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have liked it as much. But I am glad I finally checked it out before the new year. L.A. Confidential I watched the other day. Another film that's been kind of in my mental watch list for a very long time. I thought it was solid. It's nothing too crazy. It takes place in the 50s in L.A., but when I watched it, it didn't really feel like 50s. It felt much more 80s, 90s. So I guess the era of it, I didn't feel its tone of it, but has a good cast, and I think it's a pretty interesting story. And as I mentioned, I feel like on almost every podcast, I like detective stories, and this is obviously a very detective heavy story. Singing in the Rain, I watched yesterday on the last day of 2025, another iconic film that I had never seen before. To me, this was very much like White Christmas. If anybody has seen that film, like just very fast paced, a lot of musical numbers, very colorful, great acting, and yeah, I think this film is definitely going to turn into one that I rewatch in the future a lot, and I think it will become like a comfort watch. It was really, really entertaining and a lot of fun.
This is your first watch?
Yep, very first watch. Yep.
Okay.
Obviously, the "Singing in the Rain" song is very iconic, but I had never seen any of it before. It was really fun, and then I just kind of just wanted to go over Stranger Things 5. Obviously, I'm not going to do spoilers because I don't know if Jathan has seen it yet or not, and for everybody else listening. I just wanted to talk about kind of what my review said. I know, Jathan, you took a look at my review, I think, today, but I mean, this show, I said in my review, this feels like one of the last parts of my childhood, like fully closing. And there's been a lot said about this show, especially this season. And me being honest, I don't think the season was fantastic. I think there was some very bad decisions, but I still think there was some fun moments. And I think ultimately the way it ends was very satisfying, and it wrapped up the series in a great way. Um, but this show to me is one of those things where obviously this is a film podcast and we talk about how much we love movies and stuff. But movies to me are kind of like my vice, if that makes any sense. I've always used movies and some TV shows to cope with real life problems and just kind of escape reality. And Jathan knows, like, the Harry Potter series to me is like one of those things that had really big impact on me as a kid when I first started watching those movies, and I continue to watch them every single year. And Stranger Things is another series, probably right below the Potter series, that I started watching at 14 years old. I'm 22 now, and the show just ended, so it has been part of my life for almost 10 years, and it was just really an emotional close to the series. I thought, they stuck the landing some ways I was disappointed, but I just was pretty sentimental about the whole show last night, and I wrote in my review too. I vividly remember where I was when I watched each season and where I was like in my life. I remember when I first started watching the show was on season 2. Season 2 dropped on my 14th birthday, and I remember watching season 1, season 2 like within a couple days. Season 3 I remember was after, I think it was our first year of high school, and then season 4 was right when we graduated. So like very distinct moments in my kind of childhood that I'll never forget. And I'm a big fan of these actors and the creators of the show, and it was just really cool to end off 2025 with this final episode. Obviously, like I said, I'm not going to talk about the details now. I think maybe once Jathan's done watching it, maybe I don't think we'll do a full episode on it, but maybe we can talk about some of the things we liked and disliked about it. But it was it was fun to watch last night, so I just wanted to kind of shout out that real quick.
If I could ask you real quick, what would you rate season 5 compared to the other 5 seasons?
Well, if I were to rank them right now, off the top of my head, I'll go 1 to 5. Number one ranked, I would go. It's tough. I think I would go season 1. Number 2, I would go season 4. Number 3, I would go season 2. Number 4, I would go season 3. And last, I would go season 5. If I'm looking at them as a collective, um, but I still love the show, and once you do watch it, we can obviously discuss it more. But yeah.
Glad to hear. Um, is there anything else you want to touch on, like movie news wise, before we jump into
No,
it?
news. I really don't have much. I mean, January, there's not going to be much dropping that's really notable. I think the only big movie that I'm somewhat excited for is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Other than that, January is going to be a slow month, so I won't be in the theater a ton because there's not a ton coming out, but I will be catching up on a lot of movies that I've um, been wanting to watch for a long time. But no big movie news for me.
Okay.
But
Well,
yeah,
let's
go
jump
go
into
for it.
it.
Yep. So Marty Supreme, obviously one of the biggest films of at this point last year. We're in the new year now. Obviously, this was very highly anticipated from the great marketing of Timothy Chalamet. Like I've said multiple times, Josh Safdie is a director that I'm a huge fan of, so I was excited from that aspect. You get Gwyneth Paltrow back to acting after she took a little retirement, and it's just this was the big send off of 2025. So I think the best way to go about this movie, I have the three big acts kind of outlined, and we'll go act by act. But before we get into it, Jathan, how did you feel about the film when we watched it last week? Obviously, we talked a little bit on the car ride home, not much about it, but how were you feeling after you saw Marty Supreme?
Yeah, now that I've digested it, Marty Supreme, I think, is one of the most exciting films to come out this year. Uh, the first act, I was kind of left wondering like where is this going slash what is the film about, because I'm a guy who tries to refrain from trailers and stuff. So I've only seen the first one, and then I had an idea of what it was going to be about. And are we going to talk about spoilers here?
Not right. Once we start to get into it, not right the second though.
Okay. Um, I would just say that for anyone who's like on the fence for watching this movie, um, I think tennis is a big part of this film, but I wouldn't say that it is a
Table
sports
tennis.
movie. All right. Table tennis is not a huge part of this movie. It's important, but if you don't like sports movies, then I think you can still sit down and watch this, because they use those scenes very sparingly, and when they do, it's similar to Challengers in the sense that it's a moment of it's an emotional peak, and it leaves you on the edge of your seat, just
Yeah.
tension wise. But what did I think? I think it really reminded me of Uncut Gems, which we talked about in the car. Same with Good Time. And that's not a slight at Marty Supreme, but I think it just shows that the Safety, Josh Safety, knows how to create tension. And it really had me on the edge of my seat. Like I I was enthralled with it. I thought the lighting and the colors was beautiful. I thought the acting was superb, even from first time actors such as Tyler the Creator. Um, yeah, I think Marty Supreme is a must watch. Do I think it's a perfect movie? No, but it is absolutely entertaining, and that's what I think the number one thing movies should try to be is entertaining.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, as you kind of alluded to as well, this is very similar to Uncut Gems and similar to Good Time, but I feel like, you know, my biggest gripe with the film is just how similar was Uncut Gems. The story beats are kind of the same. Obviously, Adam Sandler's character and Timothy Chalamet's character are very different, and they're in different stages of their lives. But as I was watching this thing, I was like, I kind of have a feeling of how this is going to play out. And, you know, that's not to say the movie's bad. It just kind of, I guess, in a way, hindered my rating. But I think, like you were saying, this is still one of the best of the year. It was certainly entertaining. I mean, there's been a lot of great entertaining films this year, but this one was definitely up there for me. I think I'm not going to reveal my top 10 of the year yet, because I think we're going to be going over that in our in person pod. But this is definitely up there in my rankings of 2025. As I was saying last podcast, I think it would be a massive shock if Timothy Chalamet doesn't win Best Actor this year. I think this is his year. I think this is the role that's going to put him over the edge for that award. It's not my favorite performance of the year, but it's certainly up there. I think the supporting cast for this film was phenomenal, and I think Josh Safdie took a big risk on some people. Obviously, Kevin O'Leary never acted in anything before. His character is very similar to him in real life, but I think he delivers a great performance. Tyler the Creator, obviously his music videos are very cinematic. I think he might have done some appearances on TV shows before, but he's never done a big film like this before, and he was excellent. You got Abel Ferreira. I really liked his character. He's obviously a very kind of classic New York film director, so this was kind of right up his alley, as this film takes place majority in New York. I think Odessa Zion, who's been in a few things recently, I thought she was really great. I think she's one of the best supporting actors of the year, and same with Gwyneth Paltrow. I think she's one of the best supporting actors of the year as well. But yeah, I was I was entertained with this. It was pretty much what I expected. There's some things here and there I don't like, but I think ultimately this is a wild ride from start to finish. I've seen it 3 times now, and yeah, I'm excited to kind of just get more into the details. So, Jathan, how I kind of broke this up was the three major acts of the film. Um, First being before Marty goes to London for the British Open is the first act. The second act is when he's in London and traveling the world is the second act, and then third act is kind of that um, build up to Japan while in Japan. So obviously, I kind of want to go in order. If we jump around a little bit, it's okay because this film is pretty chaotic. But I kind of want to start with leading up to him leaving for the British Open.
Hmm.
If there's anything you want to start off with that.
Yeah, you get introduced to Marty, and you get a gist for his character. I'll just start spoiling here. Uh, he takes money from his boss, who he says owes him money, but it's made clear that like it's not done under his will. So you get a gist for how Marty can be kind of a swindler and just a sweet talker who tries to charismatic his way through a lot of his problems, which you'll see through the film. But you get introduced to his home life. You get introduced to the romance that he pursues with Gwyneth Paltrow's character.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
And you see what's her name, Odessa.
Yeah, her character name's Rachel.
Yeah, he. You can tell that like Marty, he kind of is a one man crew. Like he's a sweet talker to women, and they think like he has their best intentions in mind, but in reality he doesn't. But he's passionate. He's a shit talker. When he goes to play tennis, table tennis, you know that he has nothing else going on in his brain other than the match in front of him. So he's kind of like Jordan Poole in the sense that he plays under pressure, and if the baddies are on the sideline, he's not going to get distracted. But the first act, it's your stereotypical like New York story, like with the underdog who's just trying to make it big. And I would say that what like kind of sets Marty apart from other protagonists is his drive, but also just how he treats people. Like I wouldn't call him a evil guy, but he's definitely morally complicated, and people can root for him in the sense that people root for people like Michael Jordan and Mike Tyson, who, with stories revealed, like many people say they're great, or many people say they're actually like awful teammates, awful friends, uh, gamblers. Like all their vices are shown. So I would say he fits into that category.
Yeah. And I think right from the beginning of the film, you pretty much see how he's a manipulator and lies about a lot of stuff. When he's at the shoe store and selling the older woman shoes, I'm pretty sure she asked for a 9.5, and he comes out with an 8.5 on purpose, um, either to get her to buy a different brand that's maybe more expensive, or just to get her, you know, just prolonging the situation. Um, but you see, he has this kind of relationship with Rachel that, obviously, I mean, we can actually no. I'll wait for this part. Obviously, Rachel is married to a different man, and it's not Marty. But obviously, they have some type of sexual relationship throughout the film that gets revealed more and more as it goes. But he's just like the ultimate. He thinks like nobody can touch him, nobody can tell him no, and obviously, you get the part of the film that you were saying, Jathan, where he steals the $700 to go on his trip to Japan. He says he was promised that money, but obviously the money wasn't given to him, so he does kind of take it very forcefully, and that leads him into some trouble later on in the film. But I think you
Hmm.
see here that he's a very ambitious guy that I would say the people in his life are kind of holding him back in a certain way. You get the phone calls with his mom kind of lying that she was sick and all that, and I do think, in some sense, Marty was right about that because it seems like his uncle, his mother trying to hold him back and keep him like under their surveillance, which I guess I can kind of understand because he is a wild guy that seems to have made kind of not great decisions in his life before the events of this film. But yeah, I think like you were saying, the beginning of this film is pretty standard, just introducing our protagonist. Nothing too wild or out of the ordinary happens here. I feel like the second act of this film is really where stuff starts to take a turn, and that's where Marty goes on his flight to London actually and plays in the British Open. And very quickly, you see him get there, and he pretty much gets to the what you want to call it, where the what
You're skipping over where he meets the Rockwells and Gwyneth Paltrow's character.
when he first gets to London, he goes to where the tennis players are staying at. That's where I was getting to. Then he goes to the hotel with the Rockwells.
Okay.
So yeah, he lands in London. He goes to where the tennis players are. I guess their living arrangements for the Open. You can obviously see he's pretty disgusted with it. He has to share a room with another player. Then the players have their I guess media day where they all are taking pictures together, and this is where Marty meets up with his friend. That is another tennis player. His friend's name is Bella Kalinsky, who's um, I think I forget what country he's from, but he's not from America. But he's obviously friends with Marty, and this is where Marty discovers that the Japan team is playing this year in the Open. Um, Even with the travel ban they have, obviously post World War II. But then, yes, this is where Jathan was saying. This is where Marty goes to I think it's the Ritz Hotel, and this is where he meets the Rockwells, where you get the scene of him obviously watching them walk into the hotel, and he makes eye contact with Gwyneth Paltrow's character, who name is Kay Stone, and She's walking along her husband, Milton Rockwell, who's played by Kevin O'Leary. If
Hmm.
you want to touch on this part of the film.
Yeah. So just like how you mentioned, Marty feels burdened. Kay is similarly in a situation where she doesn't give a crap about her husband, and she feels like a trophy wife at this point. Now that she doesn't act, and that she just travels around. So Marty pounces on this opportunity, whether he find her attractive or just to get under Rockwell's skin and like kind of infiltrate and make some connections. Uh, who knows? But he does his thing. He makes his moves, and next thing you know, he's in bed with her, and they're talking about tennis and
Well,
how.
that's a little down the line. He first talks to her on the phone. They have that whole thing. You obviously Kevin O'Leary's character. He's very controlling of her. He's like complaining that she's on the phone too much. Then he invites her to the table tennis match, and then what that leads to like the dinner scene, and then when they sleep together. Do you want to touch on the phone call first? Because I wanted to touch on that first, or do you
Go
want to
for
go
it.
to the Yeah, so Marty obviously he asked for the royal suite at the Ritz. He can't afford it, but he acts like his representatives from the U.S. Table tennis convention are paying for it. Obviously, they're not because there isn't any. But he gets the royal suite. He calls Kay, and he starts working his charm. Like Jathan said, he's a sweet talker. He gets people to kind of do what he wants. Um, Obviously Kay is very apprehensive to this conversation because she is a married woman and seems like up until this point she's been loyal to her husband, but the phone call pretty much ends with Marty inviting her to the table tennis um, British Open. She ultimately ends up going, sees him play there, and she seems like she's pretty impressed with him. Obviously Marty is a showman. He's beating the competition, and this is the match where you get him doing the crazy behind the back and in between the legs, all that kind of craziness. But after the match that night ends with him and his table tennis friend eating at the Ritz Hotel, and across from them in a different section of the restaurant is the Rockwell um, party, as you can say. It's Milton Rockwell, Kay Stone, and whoever he has sitting with him. This is where Marty tells the waiter he's going to pay for their tab, and he wants them to know it comes from him. Milton Rockwell comes over. They get into a little um, argument, disagreement, but this is kind of what you were saying, Jathan, how he it's not super clear how much he was attracted to Kay or not. I feel like he was using her as a status point to get to Milton. Obviously, this is where he really starts to put those seeds into Milton's mind of like kind of getting involved with the table tennis and trying to get on his good side, obviously. And then this is where it leads to ultimately Marty sleeping with Kay in the hotel room. But is there anything from this section that you wanted to talk about? Okay. So yeah. So it pretty much just leaves Marty. He sleeps with Kay that night. The next day is the British table tennis championship versus him in the Japanese representative Endo, and obviously they're gonna have a kind of rivalry for the rest of this film between Marty and Endo. Endo is a Japanese player that uses a paddle and a kind of, I guess you want to call it stance, whatever they call it in table tennis, that Marty is aware of when he does it, but he's not too familiar with playing against it. And Marty gets very embarrassed in this championship. He loses all three games, 3-0. And Milton Rockwell's in the crowd because obviously Marty invited him, and obviously this is where Milton Rockwell starts getting the seeds of trying to advertise his pen company with table tennis and getting that kind of promotion. But Marty gets embarrassed, and that's pretty bad. And I think this was maybe the point in his, I guess, quote unquote, story in this film where he realizes he has to kind of humble himself and maybe not be such a manipulator and having to agree with people because after what.
I don't agree with that at all,
Okay.
considering what he does later.
I what I was getting to, but I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying from my perspective what I was getting to because after he loses this championship, this is where he agrees to be the halftime show for the Harlem Globetrotters with his friend. And what?
He doesn't agree with him at the immediately when it's offered to him. He
No,
denies
and
it
that's what I was
to
just about to say.
Rockwell. You said he agrees to be the halftime entertainer.
Okay, so if I could explain, after he loses the championship, it is the end of the British Open. He was gonna go home, but he accepts the offer from his friend to play for the Harlem Globetrotters at halftime. He was offered that position at the dinner with his friend, but ultimately, when he's with his friend at the dinner, he's like, "No, that's beneath me. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to go be some circus act." He wants to be a true professional. But with losing the British Open, that's a lot of money that he was expecting to win. He was expecting to win a lot of money. Obviously, he doesn't get that money because he loses. So he accepts the job with his friend to be the Harlem Globetrotters halftime show. Obviously, this is some money and some payment he can earn while still playing table tennis, not on a competitive level, but still playing in front of a lot of people. Um, is it what he wants to be doing? No, but this is what I meant when I'm saying I feel like he gets humbled a little bit because he had these big plans to be this world championship, first American championship in table tennis, but he gets obviously very embarrassed in the championship, and it leads him to just be the halftime at the Harlem Globetrotters show.
You're forgetting that he faced a fine from the table tennis commission, and that's why he wasn't able to compete. I don't think he got humbled,
Yeah, but
but
that part of the
rather
film,
he had
we're
to
not
make
even there
money.
yet. Yeah, but we're not even there yet. He doesn't find about that fine till he gets back to New York.
They didn't like him anyway. Like they were trying to get rid
No,
of
I
him for a
100%,
while.
100%. But he doesn't even find about that fine till he gets back in New York. This is where he's still traveling the world with the team. I mean, I'm not trying to be that guy. I've seen it 3 times. I'm just super familiar with it.
No, you got the keys here.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much he does the Harlem Globetrotter thing, and yeah, he comes back home, obviously disappointed that he lost. Comes back home to New York. I mean, he's obviously very disappointed he lost the championship. Um, and I feel like this is really the where the film gets into the total chaos. He comes back home. He meets with his mom a little bit. Ultimately, though, his uncle shows up at his house, and this is where they kind of try to scare him into giving up on his dreams of table tennis and just coming to work at his shoe store full time. His uncle takes back the money he earned from being the Globetrotter halftime show because obviously Marty at the start of the film stole $700 from him right out of the safe, and he robbed his other co-worker. This is where the police get involved, and Marty doesn't really understand that it's kind of a just a scare tactic from his uncle, but obviously then Marty turns it into a very serious situation when he escapes his house, and yeah, this is where kind of all hell breaks loose. I feel like this is the part where it starts to get chaotic. If you want to go, Jathan, for this part.
Yeah, so he he's on the run from the police, and he meets up with Tyler the Creator, who offers him a place to stay while he can just lay low for a minute. And he tries to go take a bath, right? And then the fucking bathtub falls straight through the ceiling and it collapses on a man and a dog. And he ends up getting involved with this guy who they don't really like go into depth on who he is and like what he wants or whatever, but he's not a good guy. They make that clear. They make it clear that he has a lot of money for no reason, and he ends up getting entangled with this guy who is up to no good, and he's like, "I'll pay you to take him to a vet to fix the dog because the bathtub like crippled his paw or some shit," and he takes Rachel to they go to New Jersey. Sorry, not with Rachel, with Tyler the Creator, to win some money and just
And
hustle a
that
little
the
bit.
reason they want to win the money is because this is where they find out that Marty has that $1,500 fine.
Yeah. So they like clean house at the bowling alley. You've seen this in the trailers, and they leave. They run into the same guys that they rinsed, and they're not happy at all. Some commotions get mixed up, and they're next to a gas station, right?
Yep.
So I forget how, but the fucking gas station explodes, right? And
Well,
then
Marty sprayed them all with gas, and then the transformer fell on it.
oh yeah, so all hell breaks loose. The car's back trunk opens, and the dog, his name is Moses. He gets out, and he just fucking runs off to nowhere. And they're like, "Shit, we need to find this dog," but they can't because they're just on the run. So they go back up north with like no money because they had to fix Tyler the Creator's car,
Yep.
so they couldn't even pay off the fine. But he gets Rachel involved because she's facing domestic abuse from her squid of a boyfriend, and Marty ends up taking Rachel under his wing,
Mm-hmm.
whether maybe for his kid, maybe because he feels for Rachel. It's not made clear, but they end up driving back down to New Jersey to form this scheme to get the dog back and get the money.
They do. I just want to mention real quick. I just cut you off real quick. They go to Dion's house, which was Marty's like good friend that really believed in him, and they were trying to do some marketing with the orange ball and all that. But yeah, continue. They have the scheme.
Mm-hmm. They go down to New Jersey, and the dog is now in this like random guy's house, and they knock on his door. They're trying to be civil, but he doesn't have any of that shit, and he's like one of those guys who'll blow your head off if you step foot on their property. So I guess it was a little bit warranted because Marty ended up breaking and entering, but
Yeah.
it leads to a bunch of chaos, and they can't get the dog, and they barely get away with their lives. So then they're on their way back up to New York, and Rachel comes up with this scheme to get this guy's dog, like replace it with a similar looking dog, thinking he won't be able to tell the difference. And they call the guy, and he's like, "I'll give you." They're like, "I'll give you like 1,200 or something," which will basically cover the fine that Marty needs. So unless I'm jumping around, they they go to New York. They meet the guy up, and he's got like a, was it a knife or a gun? I think it was a gun.
Abel Ferrera is like the guy with the dog. That's like the big gangster. I'm assuming he's a gangster. That's why he has a lot of money. He has a knife. His right hand man has the gun.
Mm-hmm. So Rachel's character, she has like trust issues because people are always trying to scam her, and she's trying to talk her way into getting the money from these two gangsters without getting hurt or without getting scammed of the dog. So while she's doing that, um, the guy comes out with the dog, and then Abel Ferrera's character walks over immediately, and he's trying to get the dog without handing the money over. And then she won't back off, and they're like, "Just take the fucking money." And they look at the dog, and they're like, "This is a fake dog," and they end up stabbing the was it the pizza shop owner?
Yep.
Yeah, so just total collateral right there. And then all hell breaks loose again, and they do end up getting the money, right? Or
A
was
little bit.
no?
That's a little bit down. Yeah. I just wanted to mention real quick too. I forgot. When Marty comes back to New York, it had been 8 months when he was like touring with the Globetrotters, and this is where it's revealed that Rachel is obviously pregnant.
Super pregnant.
Yeah, she's like 8 months in, about to hit 9 months, which is obviously when a baby normally comes out. So, and at this point, I think at this point in the film, it's not 100% clear, but to me, it's pretty clear that the baby is Marty's baby. But continue, Jathan. You're on the right track.
Yeah, so that that whole shit show goes, and they're like, "We want the real dog," and he ends up escorting with them to make sure they get the dog because for whatever reason he just is a maniac about this dog. So they go back to the same spot down in New Jersey with that crazy guy, and
Yeah. With Marty.
yep, whole crew. And Marty goes to the front door with a gangster, knocks on the door. Immediately, the guy's head gets shot through the glass with a shotgun. And then Abel Ferrera's character goes up with a gun, and they get into a shootout. And they they're going they're having the shootout, and uh, Marty and Rachel decide to get out of there and just get the money and just avoid any crossfire. Um, a, some shrapnel hits Rachel, so she's incapacitated, and Marty gets the money from the house. Both the guys are dead by now. Like the house is on fire, shit's going crazy, and he gets the money, and he's driving Rachel, who the bullet started her contraptions, so now she's heading into labor. And I forget if Marty pays someone to drive her to the hospital
He drives
because
her.
okay, he drives her and he leaves her at the hospital because he needs to get to Japan to save his legacy in his eyes. And
Yeah. The only part I well, you go ahead, and then I'll.
he ends up re-encountering Gwyneth Paltrow's character, and he tries to swindle her for some money because he's dead broke.
I just
And
wanted to say you can continue because you're right. This part was right before they go back to the house because he you're about to say, but he ends up striking a deal with Milton Rockwell before he goes back to the house with Rachel. But yeah, go ahead.
so he talks her down, and they end up having sex in the middle of a park. Marty hits the three-peat. Uh, he hits the three-peat like Jordan before he retired, and then a cop starts coming up to them with a flashlight, and Gwyneth Paltrow ends up giving the cop the earrings that she was gonna give Marty for some money, and he's like, "Can I get another pair of earrings?" She's like, "No," and he ends up talking her down again, and she heads to this party that the Rockwells are having before their trip to Japan. And Marty's waiting outside, but it doesn't seem like Kay's gonna come out, so he sneaks his way in. Um, Kay's inconsolable because someone gave her a shit review on her movie, and he ends up walking up to Kevin O'Leary's character just as like a last ditch effort to get to
Yep.
Japan. And the, Kevin O'Leary hates this dude by now, so he's not having any of it. He's talking him down in front of all of his rich friends, and he ends up spanking Marty a couple times with a paddle right on his ass, and hazes him in front of everyone so he can get onto the plane.
Yeah.
And he basically calls him daddy, and he gets on the plane,
Yeah, this
and
pretty. I just want to say this was right before they go to the dog's house, and this pretty much just 100% guaranteed Marty a shot to Japan. Obviously, he's doing this more so on the accord of Milton Rockwell's rules, but at the end of the day, whatever is going to get Marty to Japan is what he does. And then I just want to mention, so when Marty does take the money from Abel Ferrera's character as they're leaving the house, um, there's not a lot of money in that envelope. Obviously, Abel Ferrera's character is a gangster who is he knows all the tricks of the trade. Half of the money in there was just pictures of naked women, and then the part of it that was money was really just like a couple $1 and $5 bills. I think they, like you said, Jathan, they agreed on like $1,200 or $1,500. It was nowhere near that amount. I think there was maybe $20 in that envelope, which $20 in the 50s is good, but not clearly not enough to pay his fine. But at this point, Marty, when he was leaving the house and, Rachel's in the back telling him, "Did you get the money?" He just wanted to make her feel good at that point because obviously she stuck her neck out for him, and he just wanted to let her know that, yeah, I got all the money, but all the money was only about $20. But he doesn't want to let her know that because obviously she just took a damn bullet for him. But yeah, continue. You're on the right path.
yeah, so Marty's been taking a ton of shit from just everyone, and he's at a point in his career where he isn't known for much. His matches that he is known for, he's number two in. So
Yep.
he feels like this Japan exhibition match is his last chance at saving his legacy. So he goes to Japan. It's made clear that Marty has to throw this match, and whether he did or he didn't, he ends up losing, and everyone starts cheering, and then they're like, "Oh, for the next part, like Marty, you have to make out with this pig," and they roll out this like huge boar, and that like makes Marty snap. He starts fucking walking around the stage, pounding his chest like LeBron when he got slapped on the wrist by Jason Tatum, and just going ape shit. And he's like screaming. He's like, that was not a real match. I did not give it my best effort. Well, whether he did or he didn't, but he's making a fool of himself in front of all these millionaires and shit, and they aren't gonna entertain it until Kodo acknowledges him as a competitor and he says, "We want a rematch." So
Yep.
the people get what they want, and Kevin O'Leary's character, he talks to Marty. He's like, "You don't know what you're fucking doing." Like he's talking him down, and the commissioner of the table tennis league, he he's giving him shit too. And at this point, Marty, like, you could have socked both of these dudes in the face, and I would have been completely fine with that. Like, I didn't want to hear any more shit from these pigs, but
Yeah, Marty's just pretty much playing the second match just for himself and to, like you said a bunch, Shaitan,
mm-hmm.
to like defend his own legacy. I just wanted to mention real quick. Obviously, Kevin O'Leary says to Marty, well, Milton Rockwell says to Marty that, if he's like, win or lose this match, you're not getting back on my plane. I'm not paying your fine, and you're sure as shit not playing in the Japan Championship Open. And Marty's like, I don't care. He's like, I'm doing this. He's doing this to prove it to himself that he's still a good player.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, continue.
He's doing it for completely selfish desires, but at the same time, they're making us as the audience root
Yep.
for him because he's just been through hell through this whole movie. But at this point, you're rooting for him because you've got enough shit from all these rich pigs who just treat him like a circus. But they play, and it comes down to the wire, but Marty wins, and he collapses to the ground.
You started busting laughing. I was dying.
Yeah, I started dying laughing. It was my first time seeing it because he quite literally did the LeBron. Um, but everyone's kind of distraught, and it just zooms in on Marty, who's just pure ecstasy. He ends up hitching a hike home with the U.S. Army, who is stationed in Japan, and he gets a ride to the hospital, and he's just pacing around in the waiting room, and then he checks on Rachel in the maternity leave, and we're getting into the ending of the film now, and
Yep.
he goes to the nursery, he sees his kid, and you see him cry, and it's like real, like authentic tears, and he hasn't cried the whole movie. I wouldn't call him a stoic character, but to me it felt like the first moment in the film where Marty Supreme didn't put on an act, or like
Yeah.
didn't there was no one to swindle in that moment but himself, and whether he actually wants to raise this child or not, I think it was just a moment of joy for him because he proved to himself that he is a worthy tennis player, but at the same time, he proved to himself that like there are bigger things in life than table tennis, which I think he desperately and everyone was trying to tell him to know. Not a slight at tennis at all, but like I think Marty's life was very much consumed by it and his need to prove himself. So it comes full circle when he's holding his child for the first time and he realizes that there's something bigger than himself. So that's the end of the
Yeah.
movie. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we
No,
wrap up?
just the ending. I think the ending was really brought the movie home. I interpret it as I really hope that obviously this character Marty Supreme is a more exaggerated fictional version of the actual guy. His real name was Marty Reisman, who was a table tennis player, but obviously like this was just over the top, super dramatic. Not all the events of the film were real, but based on the film, I would hope that Marty Mauser realizes that like you were saying, Jathan, there's more to life than table tennis, and not even just table tennis, but I feel like Marty really wanted to be famous, and he wanted a big name, and he wanted a lot of notoriety, which I feel like a lot of people want that till they realize what you have to sacrifice to make that achievable. And I feel like by the end of the film, he really realizes that he should um, have a real relationship with Rachel. He should
Yeah.
really raise this kid, slow down. But I ultimately think the matchup in Japan that he had, I think it will give him an opportunity in the future to compete in table tennis down the road. Obviously, I think I would hope that this guy is taking a break, raising his kid and starting a family, but it doesn't diminish that he's still a great table tennis player. And I would hope that eventually his story ended with him continuing to compete. But I hope he slowed down his life and realized that fame and obviously, like he was trying to infiltrate the Rockwell family and obviously get the status and cool, I guess, points from um, sleeping with Kay Stone. But
Hmm.
I think the ending really was effective because I think like I was saying, I have certain gripes with the film, and I think it was getting a little too um, over dramatic. And I will say, in Josh Safdie's other films, it's kind of a bad ending for the characters. I feel like this ending for Marty Supreme was kind of hopeful. At least that's how I took it, and I hope that's how it ended for Marty. But I really enjoyed this. I I'm apologize to you, Jay. That I'm sorry I was being a stickler on the plot points. I just wanted to kind of go in order as best as possible, and I feel like we hit them all and did a good job explaining them. But I just wanted to. I know that this film is very chaotic, and there's a lot of scenes, but I kind of just wanted to go in linear fashion as best as we could, and I feel like we did a good job on that. But I really enjoyed the film. Like Jathan said, I don't think it's perfect. It's not my favorite of the year, but I think it's really, really good. Timothy Chalamet, I thought he was excellent. He really, I really like when actors, like I've mentioned a lot, I'm a big actors guy. I really like when actors are confident and they fully believe in their role in their work. And I feel like Timothy's obviously a very confident guy just through his interviews and stuff. But this performance, I feel like when he was acting, he knew he was doing a good job, and I don't think that's a arrogant thing. I think it's a really commendable thing because a role like this, it's a 1950s movie about a table tennis. Not to make fun of table tennis or anything. I don't give a shit about table tennis. I don't care. But they made this really entertaining and really fun. I feel like this was kind of how we felt about challengers as well, Jathan. I didn't know anything about uh, tennis going into challengers. I didn't give a shit about tennis, but they made it really entertaining and really fun, and I feel like they did the same in Marty Supreme here. So I had a really good time with it.
For sure. Um, I think Timothy definitely absorbed this character into his bones. Like, if you just look at any of the surrounding material from the fake Zoom meeting he had
Yeah, yeah,
down to the song with SD Kid on the it's for Roz, but it's the Marty Supreme verse, which is tough as hell. But um, yeah, I see the comparison with challengers, especially. I think tennis is used more in that film, and I think tennis is more of a theme in that film. They explicitly
yeah,
state that tennis is a way of life, and it's a way of romance. It's a way of competition. So I would say the sport is definitely more ingrained in that film compared to here, where it's more about this ambitious guy who starts to float around some of the elites of society, and they really make you hate the elites, but at the same time, like, you can't really blame them, especially considering when Timothy is such a has such unearned arrogance
yeah,
surrounding his play. And even though he didn't know it, like, he begged his wife 3 times, so I can't really blame him there. So I enjoyed it. Definitely has its problems. Started to lose me a little bit with the whole dog subplot. I think we were getting a little too dramatic, like you said. But I
yeah,
I really want to rewatch this movie, and honestly, I haven't stopped thinking about it because it's Marty Supreme. Like, the advertising is everywhere, and I see a lot of people already, like, idolizing the character Marty Supreme already. You know, some people say it's good, some people say it's bad that people are idolizing him, but I don't really care. I think it's all for jokes.
yeah. I think so too. Yeah. But that's all I got on Marty Supreme. I thought it was really good. Me and Jathan both gave it a 4 out of 4, I believe. Yep, yep. We
I
both
would
gave it.
probably give it 4 out of 4.5 on a rewatch.
Okay. Yep. It's really good. Really fun. I'm glad we got to review it and glad we got to see it together as well. It was a fun theater experience. But to close the episode out, we have a little Timothy Chalamet draft. I don't know how many films you've seen of him, Jathan. So if you do end up running out of films, uh, that's fine. I guess you could just draft what you want to see from him. But I've seen a decent amount of his films, and I just thought it would be fun to draft his movies. And
Are we
I guess our
ranking
top
his
five.
performance or are we ranking the films?
I was gonna leave that up to you if you want to go performance or you want to go based on how much we enjoyed the film.
I'll go performance.
Okay. Um, so I have the draft pulled up on the stream right now. Hopefully, it's you can see it with our webcams. Is it good?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'll let you get the first pick. We have five picks each, and we'll just go back and forth.
So if we're ranking number ones, then I have to go with Beautiful Boy here because man, that is heart wrenching to watch. I'm not going to go too into depth here. I think a lot of you have seen this film. It's about addiction, and I think he has a lot of material to work with here, but I really like his performance here. It it's kind of stereotypical in the sense of an addiction story, but I love Beautiful Boy, and I think the acting is the heartbeat of that film.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think Beautiful Boy is probably my one or two for performance as well. So I definitely wanted to pick that one, but for my number one pick is tough because there's two films in mind. Well, two performances in mind. Um, man, I, I'm gonna go Marty Supreme one, not just because recency bias. I
Marty.
do, I do truly believe that this is a great performance. Obviously, we just talked about it for half an hour, but yeah, I'm going with Marty Supreme number one.
I'm glad you went with that because my
You're gonna
number
take my
two
pick right
pick
here.
is going to be Call Me By Your Name.
Oh, okay.
And I think definitely compared to Marty Supreme, it's a much, much more subtle role and just more subtle movie. But I think this is the film that made the mass audiences take Timothy Chalamet as an actor more seriously, especially with the ending. Um,
Beautiful ending.
I won't spoil it, but let's just say that Timothy kind of leaves all his cards on the table until that ending, and it makes perfect sense.
Yep. I did not think you were gonna go with that, so I'm actually kind of happy because this was the one I was debating. But my number two is Wonka. I love this performance. I think he's so good in this. I think his singing was great. Obviously, this is kind of a daunting role because obviously what Gene Wilder did with the character is pretty like incomparable. I don't think anybody will be as good as Gene Wilder was in the role, but I think Timothy gets really close. And I know you like this film a good amount, Jathan. You've seen it a couple times. I've seen it a couple times. I think it's really good. A lot of fun. Great performance.
Yeah, he's great. Um, I'm looking at my list of Timothy films, and
Hmm.
we're,
And we can
we've
split the Dunes up as well.
we've already picked four of the films of the eight that I've seen from him, so we're kind of running thin. I haven't seen The French Dispatch. I started A Complete Unknown. I haven't finished it, so I won't be picking from those films. So I'm gonna go with Dune Part Two with Timothy
Okay.
because for those who have seen the Dune films, this is where Paul Atreides really starts to put his balls on the table, and he is Lisan Al Gaib. Like, the, he's probably still gets called that today. Like he was just
Hmm.
very dominant in this film, which when you look at Timothy from an outsider's perspective, you don't really think of that from like a scrawny kid like him, but he really owns it here, and he felt demanding and he had gravity.
Yep. My number three pick is A Complete Unknown. I don't love the film, if I'm being honest. A lot of that is to do with just musical biopics I think are kind of boring nowadays. But also, I don't really know Bob Dylan's music, so watching this film was like, there was no connection to it. But I think Timothy was really, really good here. I thought, once again, a great singing performance, and I think he did a really good job embodying the character from what I understand of Bob Dylan. So I'm
Hmm.
happy with that pick.
Um, I was gonna pick Dune Part One for my number
Hmm.
four, but these last two films he doesn't really have a huge role in, but I think it was worth a mention. I'm gonna go with Interstellar for number four. Um, he doesn't have too much screen time in this film, but his character, I think, gets kind of overshadowed because it is such a big film. But emotionally, it is very resonant because his character kind of holds a lot of resentment towards his father for leaving, and while he's still a boy in the film, he looks like he can handle himself, but you learn on later that he just holds a lot of resentment toward Matthew McConaughey's character, especially for the impact and hole that he leaves in their family.
Yep, that would have been my number one pick for films, but yeah. I think next I'll go Little Woman because once again, it's not a film I love, but I think he is the second best part of that movie by far. I think he gives some really fantastic acting moments in this movie, and I feel like this was another early role for him alongside Call Me by Your Name that really started to get people really invested in him.
Mm-hmm. My next pick, I'm gonna skip Dune again just to get some more variety in here. Um, this is the last film I can pick out of the ones I've seen, so I'm gonna go with Lady Bird. Um, he's more of a supporting role in this one. I honestly, to tell you the truth, I didn't really think too much of this performance. I didn't think it was bad, but I was just kind of indifferent toward the character. But he serves more as a lesson for Lady Bird in this film, not to tangle with these avoidant people who aren't going to like you for who you are. And to be to be blunt, he's kind of a fuck boy in this film. So he he really just is there to serve as a lesson to Lady Bird, and I guess Timothy can play that role if he needed to. So I think we have some good variety, at least on my list, towards his range as an actor. But I want to hear your number five.
Yeah, so I haven't seen Bones and all yet, which I know a lot of people like that. I was actually gonna watch it the other day, but I didn't get to it. So my number five pick will be Dune Part One. I think he's really good in Dune Part One, but I between both movies, I think obviously Dune Part Two is just like another level. He has like his character is much more important, much more to do. His the first Dune I feel like is more of a he's kind of like flowing with the story in Dune Part One, and I feel like Dune Part Two he's leading the story, so it gives him much better acting opportunities in the second part. But I think the first part's still really good. Um, I remember watching the movie in theaters for the first time, knowing nothing about it. Just I knew some of the actors that were in it, and he was definitely one of the performances in the first film that really made me enjoy the movie. Um, like I said, I've seen a good amount of his films. I haven't seen Bones and all, which I want to. There's a couple other ones. The King, he's pretty good in The King. I just don't like the movie. The French Dispatch. Um, I love Wes Anderson. That's one of my least favorite Wes Anderson movies, and I think that movie has like three different stories in it, and I think Timothy Chalamet's story in that film is not very entertaining. So not a bad performance, but not a film I really think about. But yeah, I like these lists. I thought for sure you were gonna go Wonka, which I really wanted, but Call Me by Your Name is, I mean, he was
He
Oscar
owned it.
nominated for that.
He owned
Yeah,
it in Wonka, but I couldn't pass up "Call Me by Your Name." I mean,
yeah,
again, I think that's the performance that really put him on the map. I think a lot
yeah,
of people are gonna contend with your number three selection here because I know a lot of older people didn't really buy into Timothy for that movie as Bob Dylan.
yeah. But yeah, that's it for episode 18. I feel like we did a pretty in depth Marty Supreme review. Hopefully, we didn't miss any major points. I don't think we did. Did a little Timothy draft that was more diverse than I thought. It ended up being pretty good. But yeah, I think that's it for this episode. I think our next episode to come out, I don't. Is it going to be the in person one or is that going to be the week after? I think the week after.
Um,
Because I don't know if you'll have time to edit that in the couple days that we're recording.
let's do, because this goes up on the 5th. Yeah,
Yep.
let's do it. Next episode, number 19, in person.
Okay. All right. Nice. Yeah. So, I think that episode, like I said, there's a lot in store. There's a lot of just fun stuff, and then we're gonna be going over some of our 2025 like favorite films, favorite performances, stuff like that. So, looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how different it's going to be compared to the, not Zoom, but online podcast that we do.
Yeah, I will say I don't think we're gonna be able to do like a screen, like a shared screen, how we normally do with like Letterbox and stuff like that. I think it's just gonna be us on webcam, but yeah, we'll be in person, one camera. I think
We'll
we can
figure
plug
it
in
out.
both our mics. Yeah, we'll figure it out as it goes, but it's gonna be more so just a lot of talking. Hopefully, it's a fun, long episode, but I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all I got for episode 18 today.
All right. Signing off.